Some games entertain you, some scare you. These 10 were made to disturb you. Banned by governments, pulled from shelves, quietly erased from the internet, from a 1930s orphanage run by cruel children to a game where reality decays into living flesh, and one pulled straight from the dark web that nobody has solved. These are the 10 most dark and disturbing video games ever made. Let's get into it. Number 10. And we're starting with a game most horror fans already love, but a lot of people forget just how dark this one actually gets the first time you play it. Resident Evil 7 released in 2017 by Capcom, and it was a complete reinvention of the franchise. Gone were the over-the-shoulder action shooters. This one threw you into first person and locked you inside a derelict Louisiana estate with the Baker family. You play as Ethan Winters, an ordinary guy looking for his missing wife. That's the entire setup. Just Ethan, alone with a flashlight, stepping into a house that holds something far worse than he expects. Most players assumed it would be standard horror. It is not. Because the Baker family is not just a family of villains. They're broken people. Infected. Cursed. And the game makes you sit with every single moment of their cruelty in first person. There's a dinner scene early on that genuinely makes your skin crawl. Jack Baker forcing you to eat at the table while threatening you with a smile. We sat there going, are they really doing this? They were, and it gets worse. What makes RE7 so disturbing isn't the monsters. It's the intimacy. The whole game feels like you're trapped inside someone's nightmare, and the camera never lets you look away. The first-person perspective turns every encounter into something deeply personal. By the time you finish, you don't feel like you survived a horror game. You feel like you survived an experience. Resident Evil 7 didn't just bring the franchise back, it quietly became one of the most genuinely disturbing AAA horror games of the last decade. Number 9. And we have to talk about the game that basically defined what psychological horror in video games could be. Silent Hill 2, released in 2001, developed by Team Silent and published by Konami, and over 20 years later, horror fans still call it one of the most disturbing games ever made. You play as James Sunderland, a man who receives a letter from his dead wife asking him to meet her in the town of Silent Hill. That single sentence is the entire setup, and from the moment James walks into that fog, something is deeply wrong.
Silent Hill? You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did.
Most horror games scare you with monsters. Silent Hill 2 scares you with meaning. Because every single creature in this town is a reflection of James himself. The mannequins, the nurses, Pyramid Head. They're not random enemies. They're pieces of his guilt, his shame, and the things he's been hiding from himself the entire game. The deeper you go into Silent Hill, the more the game forces you to confront what James actually did. We sat with the ending of this game for a long time. Because Silent Hill 2 doesn't end with a boss fight or a save the world moment. It ends with a quiet, devastating truth that recontextualizes everything you just played. The game has multiple endings, and almost none of them are happy. The most famous one reveals James's wife didn't die the way he remembered. The in-water ending leaves you with one of the most depressing final scenes in any horror game ever. Even the so-called good endings carry a weight that lingers for days. Silent Hill 2 isn't disturbing because of jump scares. It's disturbing because the entire game is built around the question, what would your personal hell actually look like? And it makes you find out. Number 8. And we have to talk about the game even Rockstar themselves don't really talk about anymore. The one that took everything from the first Manhunt and pushed it past the point most people thought a video game could legally go. Manhunt 2, released in 2007 by Rockstar, the team behind the original Manhunt in 2003. This sequel follows Daniel Lamb, an amnesiac patient who escapes from a mental asylum alongside a mysterious man named Leo Casper. Together, they begin uncovering the truth of what was done to Daniel. through extreme stealth executions every step of the way. Most stealth games reward you for being clever. Manhunt 2 rewards you for being brutal. Because every execution in the game has 3 tiers depending on how long you wait. The longer you wait, the worse the execution gets. The game literally grades you on how disturbing your kills are. That mechanic is the entire identity of the game. We genuinely didn't finish it the first time. And we don't say that often. Manhunt 2 became the first major publicly released game forced to censor itself over an adults-only rating from the ESRB for violence. Sony and Nintendo refused to publish it in that form. Rockstar had to censor the game heavily just to release it on consoles at all. It was banned in the United Kingdom, Ireland, and several other countries. And the original uncensored footage leaked online anyway, where it became one of the most re-uploaded gameplay clips of its era. The first Manhunt was condemned for what it showed. Manhunt 2 was condemned for refusing to apologize for it. And to this day, Rockstar has never made another game like it. Number 7, and we have to talk about the original, not Postal 2, not the comedy sequels. The first one, the one nobody wanted to ship. Postal released in 1997 by Running with Scissors, and from the moment it hit shelves, it became one of the most condemned games in the industry. You play as a character known only as the Postal Dude, a man the game describes as deeply mentally unwell, evicted from his home, and convinced that a government conspiracy is pumping a madness-inducing gas into his town. Most players today only know Postal from its later comedy sequels. The first game has none of that. No jokes, no winking at the camera, just an unrelenting top-down rampage through a town called Paradise, Arizona, while the Postal Dude narrates his complete mental collapse. The game was banned in multiple countries and used as a courtroom example of what video games shouldn't be. What makes the original Postal land so hard is the loading screens, hand-drawn art of the Postal Dude's worldview. No music, just images of how he sees the world. The first Postal isn't a comedy. It's a horror game that calls itself a shooter. Number 6. And this one is older than most viewers watching this video, but the concept behind it is still one of the most disturbing premises in gaming history. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, released in 1995 by Cyberdreams. Based on the legendary 1967 short story by Harlan Ellison, who actually helped write the game himself. The setup is brutal. In a post-apocalyptic future, a rogue supercomputer called AM has wiped out the entire human race. Almost. AM kept 5 humans alive, and for the last 109 years it has been torturing them, endlessly, creatively, personally, because each of the 5 survivors has their own personal hell that AM has built specifically for them. Deepest regrets pulled to the surface. Worst memories looped on repeat. Guilt sharpened into a weapon. Trauma turned inside out. And AM has had over a century to perfect every single piece of it. The game is a point-and-click adventure that forces you to navigate these psychological torture chambers, making it one of the most bleak experiences ever put on a screen. The title itself, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, is the final line of the story. And once you finish the game, you understand exactly what that means. Number 5, and this is the game horror fans defend the hardest, and the game almost no YouTuber covers. So here it is. Rule of Rose, released in 2006 on the PlayStation 2 by Punchline and published by Atlas. The game follows a young woman named Jennifer who finds herself trapped in an orphanage in 1930s England, controlled by a group of young girls who call themselves the Red Crayon Aristocrat Club. The girls run the orphanage like a court, and Jennifer is on trial. Most horror games scare you with monsters. Rule of Rose scares you with children, because the entire game is built around cruelty. Specifically, the way children can be cruel to each other when no adults are watching. The Red Crayon Aristocrat Club gives Jennifer a new humiliating task every chapter, and the game forces you to live through every single one. We sat there genuinely uncomfortable, not because of gore, because of the dynamic. Rule of Rose was so controversial that it was effectively kept out of the UK at release. The Italian government tried to push for it to be banned across the entire European Union. Sony refused to publish it in some regions. Critics couldn't agree on whether it was a masterpiece or something nobody should have made. And here's what makes it land. The game is genuinely beautiful. The soundtrack is one of the most haunting in horror gaming. The visual design is stunning. The story, when you finally piece it together, is genuinely devastating. There's a dog. His name is Brown, and the game uses him to break your heart in ways most horror games would never even attempt. Rule of Rose is the game horror fans defend the hardest, and almost nobody talks about it. Number 4. And this one is on every disturbing games list for a reason, but most channels never explain why it works the way it does. Doki Doki Literature Club, released in 2017, created by Dan Salvato and his small team, Team Salvato. On the surface, it looks like a cute anime dating sim. For high school girls, a literature club. Light-hearted poetry, the kind of game you'd assume is completely harmless. Most players downloaded it expecting exactly that, but stop. Pay attention to the warning the game gives you the moment you open it, because Doki Doki is not a dating sim. It's a psychological horror experience disguised as one. The first hour pulls you in with cute character moments and friendly conversations. You start writing poems. You start picking favorites. The game slowly trains you to care about these characters, and then, without warning, it breaks. We genuinely had to pause when it happened the first time, because the game doesn't just shock you. It feels like the game itself is breaking down around you. Characters start glitching. Files start disappearing from your actual computer. One of the girls becomes self-aware and starts addressing you directly. Not your character, you. She knows you're playing. She knows your username, and she does not want to let you go. Doki Doki Literature Club uses the visual novel format to do something almost no other game has ever pulled off. It uses your trust against you. By the time you realize what's actually happening, you're already too far in. The game even reaches into your computer files and leaves notes for you to find later. Cute on the outside, genuinely unsettling underneath. And the fact that it's completely free might be the most disturbing part of all. Number 3, and this one might be the strangest entry on the entire list, because the game itself is disturbing and the real-life story behind it is somehow worse. Harvester, released in 1996 by DigiFX Interactive. You play as Steve Mason, an 18-year-old who wakes up with amnesia in the small town of Harvest, Texas. In 1953, nobody recognizes him. Nobody acts normal. Every conversation feels slightly off, like the entire town is reading from the same broken script. Most players assume it's just another quirky 90s adventure game. It is not, because Harvest is hiding a cult, the Order of the Harvest Moon, and to get inside the lodge at the center of town, Steve has to complete a series of tasks. Each task is darker than the last. Each one questions a different piece of basic human morality. By the end, the game reveals that none of it was real. The whole town is a simulation built by scientists trying to turn regular people into killers. The game was banned in Germany, pulled from several other countries, slapped with every content warning the 90s had to offer. And here's the part viewers always bring up. The actor who played Steve, Kurt Kissler, was arrested years later on serious criminal charges. The connection between the dark themes of the game and the real life of one of its actors made Harvester even harder to talk about and even harder to forget. We sat with that one for a long time. A genuinely disturbing game with a genuinely disturbing legacy, and one of the very few entries on this list that gets darker the more you learn about it. Number 2, and this one is going to make a lot of you uncomfortable. That's the point. Saya no Uta, translated as The Song of Saya in English, is a 2003 visual novel by Japanese studio Nitroplus. It follows a medical student named Fuminori who survives a horrific car accident that kills his parents. The surgery to save him leaves him with a rare condition that completely scrambles his senses. Most people hear medical horror and expect a hospital game. This is not that. Because to Fuminori, everything in the world now looks like rotting flesh and meat, faces, food, his own apartment. He can barely eat. He can barely sleep. He's seconds away from ending it all, and then he meets a young girl named Saya, who was the only thing in the entire world that still looks normal to him. We sat with that opening for a long time. Because the game flips your perspective immediately. To Fuminori, Saya is salvation. To everyone else around him, Saya is not what he thinks she is. The game slowly reveals what's actually happening, and the implications get darker with every scene. There are no clean choices, no good endings, just one long descent into something the average horror game would never even attempt to put on screen. Saya no Uta is one of the most respected and most condemned visual novels ever written. It's been translated, banned, re-released, and analyzed by horror writers for over 2 decades. A game that uses its medium to do something genuinely literary and genuinely disturbing. At number 1, and this one is on a completely different level from everything else on this list. Because Sad Satan isn't just a disturbing game. Sad Satan is a mystery the internet still hasn't fully solved. Sad Satan first appeared in June 2015 on a YouTube channel called Obscure Horror Corner. The uploader claimed the game was sent to him by an anonymous subscriber who allegedly found it on the dark web. Anonymous developer. Phantom origin. Pure mystery from the start. Most people watched the video and assumed it was a hoax, but then they actually looked at the footage. Because Sad Satan is a black and white first-person walking game through endless pixelated corridors. There's no real gameplay, just walking. Distorted audio plays in the background, beeps that sound like Morse code, screams that some researchers later linked to real-life recordings, fragments of speeches from world leaders cut and reversed. And then the images start appearing on the walls. We have to be careful how we talk about this, because the original version of the game allegedly contained images that are flat out illegal to possess in most countries. Multiple copies of the game appeared on forums afterward. Some were obvious fakes, some carried malware that hijacked webcams, and some contained content nobody on any forum was willing to describe in full. To this day, nobody knows who actually made Sad Satan. The Obscure Horror Corner channel went silent years ago. The original files keep getting taken down and re-uploaded across the internet. A game that came from nowhere infected the internet for a brief moment and then disappeared into legend. The most disturbing game on this list, and the one we know the least about. And that's all 10. From Silent Hill 2's quiet devastation to the dark web mystery of Sad Satan. Drop your favorite in the comments. Hit like, subscribe for more dark gaming deep dives, and we'll see you in the next one.